I have been teaching a watercolor class in person, so it's been a really fun time to dust off some of my watercolor skills and play with some subject matters and media applications that I haven't been doing in a while. So today I wanted to play in my watercolor handmade sketchbook and do two variations on thumbnail watercolor landscapes. So for the first one, I am prepping the sky. I'm not worrying about drawing out the rectangle ahead of time. I'm not worrying about drawing out the landline. I am just having fun with wet on wet, dropping in a couple different colors of blue, building up the essence of clouds and kind of atmospheric variations. For this one, I am doing the blue all the way down to the bottom of the thumbnail because I know that I'm going to be layering on green on the bottom part, and blue and green are going to mix well together. It's going to give even more depth and variation to my land when I put it down. Now, if I was going to be doing a different colored land than, than cool, I would need to make sure that I stopped my skyline at my roughly where my horizon was going to be, because sometimes that doesn't mix so well. So something to consider if you are playing around with watercolor landscapes. On the left page of the sketchbook, I wanted to just kind of do a little made-up scenic view of a window. I wanted to be able to show my students how you can create the illusion of brick without meticulously putting in each of those brick marks. So I just loosely painted in the window with some yellow, then I went around it with some brown, and then I'm not being very patient. I'm not really waiting for things to dry, and I'm kind of popping in some unusual colors. So I'm sort of mapping in at this point some of the shadow lines. Again, this is a made up scenic view of the side of a home or something. So I'm just playing with what I know about light and how it affects a three-dimensional object like a window, and popping in some different colors to enhance where the darks are, but then also to define the window frame from the wall. And then I just keep popping around and letting things bleed, letting things merge together as I build up my wall color. Using a little bit of kind of dirty gray for the windows. Again, not waiting for the other colors to dry, so I end up picking some of my shadow up, but that kind of helps unify it so that that gray color doesn't feel so out of place against all the warms that are already on the page. And then continuing to drop in more values. You can see it running down the page. It's getting pretty wet at this point, but I really love the loose effect of it, and I wanted to work in a way that was going to be less intimidating to my students when they approach the subject matter. So now I'm going back into my landscape on the right. I'm blocking in my green values. This is super loose, super just a gist of a hillside or, some sort of area where a green ground meets a blue sky. I am putting down a couple different greens. I find that when I use more than just one color with value variations, I get more interesting textural effects when using the plastic wrap. I also find that the more saturated it is with color, the more interesting the effects are as well. So I'm just kind of cleaning up my horizon line, getting those greens in, and then one of my favorite ways to work with plastic wrap is to pull it taut, and that gives me more linear shape to the texture that's created there. And then that plastic wrap has to stay there until it dries. So this is a great time for me to go back into my window scene and add a little bit more detail there. So I go in with a little bit drier brush and load it up with the brown to kind of give the illusion of wood texture to the frame. It's not totally dry. I'm not being very patient still. And that's okay. I wanted this to be super loose and just give the illusion of textures and different materials in this picture. So I'm just continuing to go back over it and over it, getting those line details in there and increasing the value as well as the color saturation on the window frame. This is also a great time for me to kind of crispen up and define the window a little bit more from the wall and from the window pane. And now I'm going to go ahead and mix up some brick-like colors and just touch down the brush and squash it a bit to, again, give the illusion of some brickwork. I could do brick all over the whole surface, but that isn't the goal with this picture. The goal is to indicate and allude to different materials and textures. Again, the background paint is wet, so these are going to bleed a bit, and it's wet to varying degrees. So some are bleeding more than others. I'm not letting that bother me. I'm just really enjoying playing with the textures and the colors and seeing what happens as I go. And then because some of them are bleeding, I've decided to roll with it. I'm just going to go in with a little bit more water and kind of pull some of those brick marks down and up a bit to carry that color into the other wall areas, but to also just kind of soften up where the bricks are on the wall. And now the left side is done and the right side is dry. So I go ahead and peel off the plastic wrap to reveal the texture and then do a little bit of cleanup along the top where it bled a bit. And these are my two finished thumbnail landscapes.